So we're talking about your experiences in the betting ring previously. Let's talk about racing more broadly now. Racing is sort of at a crossroads where, it's still the second best attended spectator sport in Britain, but a lot of people worry about the sport's future. Is there anything you think that the higher ups in racing should be doing differently to make the sport more engaging?
I think that the racing should employ a really high profile PR company, and not an in-house thing that's run by somebody that knows somebody in racing, but a real, racing's got everything. It's got glamour, it's got colour, it's got money, it's got excitement. You've got a cross range of the whole spectrum of society that enjoy it. It should be a PR person's or an advertising agency's absolute dream of a sport to try and publicise, and I just don't think it is publicised well enough. Everybody's trying to do their own little bit. So, publicise your own companies, or, and there's some great social media and that out there. But I think put some real money into it and try and show people how fantastic the shop windows that are out there. Glorious Goodwood, Royal Ascot, Cheltenham. I've never taken anybody racing, even to, the local tracks, that hasn't enjoyed it. But race gets a negative thing with the stigma these days about gambling and, there's such a great product to sell out there, and there's such a potential audience that from the outside, we're all in both racing, so it's normal to us, and we can't understand why people don't even know anything about racing. You say, what do you do? And you tell them I work for a bookmaker, they quite often glaze over. Or if you say racing, what they used to say, that guy with the sideburns. That would be their extent, or the Grand National. I think we're such an insular sport in a certain extent that we assume that everybody knows about it, but in reality, the vast majority of people don't know about it. And I think it would be something that could be easily sold if it was put in the right sort of publicity hands, which I don't think is done.
I think many people there would agree with you. Would you change anything in terms of sort of how race days are run? Lots of people come up with ideas for making the experience cheaper. Do you think it costs too much to get into courses these days?
Well, I don't go racing as much as I used to during the week anymore, and to be honest, I never really had to pay much for myself because it's always with the bookmakers. That's one thing, they make the bookmakers pay to go in, which I always found that to be, amazing. They're all part of the attraction. I don't think racecourses realise that the racecourse bookies are part of the attraction for people that go racing, and that they're a dwindling breed now. And if they stop, racecourse bookmakers stop going, I think a lot of racegoers will stop going. But I don't think the racecourses realise that. But back to that question, there's some great value, and there's some very bad value. I think everybody's priced out of the game once they're even in the racecourse. A lot of places, the absolute ridiculous amount of money they charge for drinks and food. The whole experience could be, I think all of it needs to be looked at, really.
Some people also say that there's too much racing and that the fixture list in this country certainly is bloated. Would you reduce the amount of times basically that we raced a year?
Well, I think that it's probably, the fact that I used to go to Kempton on a Wednesday night when I worked for Turf TV every Wednesday for like 8 years, and there's 14 runner races all night. So there's obviously a demand for the amount of that sort of racing. I used to love it when the jump season ended and you had 2 or 3 months where you could get your time form books and you start doing your tender follows. I think that it's never going to happen, I know, because of the all weather now. But I used to like the seasons that ended, and then you had a gap, and then everybody got excited about the next season again. That's something I wish could come back, but I'm sure those days are gone. But that's what I would like to see.
Regarding the promotion of racing, a lot of people are wondering sort of where the sport's next generation of fans are. Sort of basically the Simon Notts, but in the 2020s. Do you worry that even if racing tries to promote itself better, that it might be more difficult to get young people into the game because there's more to do now? There's more competing sports, there's more competing leisure activities.
Well, there is a lot to do now, but if you look at who goes racing at weekends, the demographic is quite young. Midweek, the demographic's always going to be older because who can go midweek? Most people have got proper jobs where they work 9 to 5. You get tradesmen and people that can go during the week. The majority of people are always going to be pensioners or people of a certain age, because that's when they've got their free time to go. So you're never going to get the racecourse full of 25-year-olds, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
But so I think to a certain extent racing does a good job getting people in on the weekends, but and they get them in for the right reasons. Do they engage them in the racing? We've all seen the fights. We all know about the people drinking and queues for the gents, cubicles in pairs. That's there's that side of it, is bad. But I think there's interest in racing, but whether people are actually interested enough in it, they go racing for a day out, but whether they're actually racing fans or not, and whether betting shops used to create racing fans, but now betting shops aren't even like that anymore. People go in there for other reasons. They don't go in there just to bet on horses. Our local betting shop, we used to have tend to follow competitions. You all have your favourite horses. It was like a little community, and nearly everyone that I knew back when I was 18 is still into racing now. You see them at Cheltenham, that sort of thing. But I don't think the betting shops used to pay back racing by creating fans, but I don't think they do anymore.
Regarding fans, racing is lucky to have a spot on terrestrial TV through ITV and in Ireland on RTE2. Do you think that racing's well covered on TV? Because it used to be on the BBC, and we recently lost symbolic terms Cornelius Lysett from the commentary box. And do you think racing gets a good shake of things in the media?
Well, I think it's a bit of a worry with all the racing journalists that are now losing their jobs. Considering it is supposed to be the second most popular sport or attended sport, then I think these days it's being neglected, and I think that's because of gambling. The stigma that's being now put onto gambling. I think ITV do very well. If they've got to have a wide appeal, there's no point having a load of anoraks on there talking about speed figures and going. Talk about some of that stuff, but you've got to have a wide appeal. That's why they need to have celebrities on there, and I think they do a good job trying to we've got two dedicated channels for absolute anoraks and real dedicated racing fans. So ITV's got to be what it is, which is, I think they do a good job. They've got some good characters on there. Anyone that just sort of tunes in could easily get interested in it. It's not dumbing it down. It's just it is terrestrial TV to the entire country. So it's got to be a broad spectrum of interest for people that might just stumble upon it and then stay watching.
Thinking a bit more positively now about some of the stuff in racing now, what's the best innovation that you've seen in racing? Because we had Nathan Horrocks on, the inventor of the Steadicam. There's now, I think, a much more immersive racing experience, not only with the TV coverage, but with sort of racemaker programs. People were actually being educated and allowed to get much closer to the horses. Is there anything in particular you've seen that's a really positive thing that racing should run with?
I think the racemaker thing's very good, but you've got to get people racing to then meet a racemaker. I think one of my interviewees said before, I think it was Josh Appiafi, you need to take racing into the communities. You need to go, because you go into inner city places, they're full of people, betting shops, still full of people that are betting on the racing. They go and bet on the racing every day, but they wouldn't dream of going. And I think sometimes, once again, about all of us that are involved in it, people might feel a bit alienated and a bit daunted by the actual thought of going racing. Have you got the right clobber on? Yeah. Are you going to go to the right enclosure? I think if you can take like a road show or something to the people that engage in it as far as betting goes, and then try and explain to them that it isn't as daunting as they might think, and that racing is accessible to everybody as an attendee, then that would be a good innovation.
Absolutely. And for those who are watching, I know that most of the people watching are seasoned anoraks, but for those who are watching who might not have had a chance to go racing as much as you, what's one course, away from the big Grade 1 tracks, what's one course that you'd really recommend to take a first time or two, maybe? Yeah,
one of my favourites is Newton Abbot, because you can get the train down there from London. It's an absolutely fantastic journey down. You get the train from anywhere, from Paddington downwards. People down on holiday, if it's a bit miserable weather in Torquay or whatever, it's just a friendly track. It's quite often sunny because it races in the summer. Extremely friendly, extremely go ahead, try hard, independent owners. They really need to get people in there, so they engage people. They have fantastic family fun days. I mean, me and my wife and daughter go. Been the last couple of years. They give you like the kids a special race car. It's fantastic, and you feel welcome when you go there. It's a welcoming place, which I think a lot of other race courses maybe aren't, for the reasons we talked about earlier.
And last but never least, for this section, what's one racing trip abroad that, we've talked about the Melbourne Cup, which you'd love to do again. Is there any racing trip abroad that's on the Simon Nott bucket list? Yeah,
there's another in Australia, Birdville. Now, apparently Birdville is in the middle of Queensland, and it's a town that's got 100 people live in it, and then once a year everybody descends on Birdland. Is it Birdland or Birdville? I can't remember now, but that is one place. It looks absolutely amazing, but I think it's probably a young man's game. You've got to sleep out, and there's that does look something special. Birdville, I'm pretty sure it's Birdville.
Right, Simon, thanks for your time.
Thank you.